besides doing news of the week, I am also going to be talking about the 26-man roster that Greg Berhalter just released today that talks about all these players that's going to be with the U.S. men's national team, part of the October Nation Leagues games that we are going to be playing against Canada and Cuba. But before I get to that, let's do a little bit of a news of the week kind of video and take a look at news that happened in the last 6 days. And certainly one of the biggest news that's been talked about in the last couple of days is NYCFC and their stadium situation. So, as you all heard, NYCFC potentially could be facing not playing at their home playoff game at Yankee Stadium because the owner of the stadium, the New York Yankees, could potentially make a deep playoff run, and if they do get to the World Series, or if they get into the ALCS and that those games go to like game 6 or 7, then NYCFC potentially going to have to play somewhere. And the alternative venue that they are going to be playing is going to be at Citi Field. Now, this is not the first time that NYCFC had played games at Citi Field. I remember, I think 2 years ago, they had some similar issue and that they had to play at Citi Field for one of the game. And that also in terms of the scenario of the fact that NYCFC have to play their game at Citi Field is that if the Yankees does get into the ALCS and it goes at least 6 games, or if the Yankees does go to the World Series, where that's the Eastern Conference final game that is going to be at Citi Field. I mean, but overall, it's just a logistic nightmare, and that you can clearly see another big problem of why NYCFC should think about building their new stadium, and that, we were hoping that maybe if they're going to be kicked out of Yankee Stadium for their home playoff game, maybe they will play in a soccer stadium like they did, I think, last year when they, of course, played at Hartford for one of their games. But no, unfortunately, they're going to be playing at another baseball stadium. And although Citi Field is a little bit better in terms of the soccer dimension, it's still not good. Okay, I mean, it's still an absolute joke, the fact that a playoff game is playing on a baseball field, and then I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of people is pretty much rooting against NYCFC in this playoff, because they don't want a MLS Cup final hosting at a baseball stadium, because remember, if LAFC does not get to MLS Cup, the next team that has the priority in terms of hosting the MLS Cup is NYCFC, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are hoping that will not be the case, because not only that will be an embarrassment to the league, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be other people, and Eurosnub is going to absolutely laugh at MLS for hosting the biggest game of the season, not even in a soccer stadium. Mateus Almeida has been rumored to return to Liga MX with Monterrey, and originally I was thinking about doing a specific video about this, and it has something to do with the San Jose Earthquakes, and I usually do an individual video about that, but I decided that I'm going to say that I don't believe this whatsoever. And I know today they even said that Almeida has shown his interest of returning to Liga MX and potentially coaching there again, but I don't know if that is actually going to be the case. I mean, first of all, he says that he's going to be committing to this project long term, and although I know he's not going to stay in this league and stay with the San Jose Earthquakes forever, I don't think he's going to leave after just 1 year. I will be absolutely shocked if he does leave this club after a year, and that's if all this situation that he's been saying, how he's not happy with the way that the refereeing situation is going on in MLS, and also there are some inequality in terms of how referee kind of deals with certain players, and that they kind of give them priority in terms of some of the players because they are considered like world-class kind of player, and some players don't get kind of the fair treatment that you would think referees should do with all the players that is playing on the pitch in an MLS game. But besides that, I don't think Almeida is going to be leaving, and that, hopefully this will just go away, because this is not the first time I have heard Almeida has been rumored a job that is going to be somewhere else besides the San Jose Earthquakes. And for Christ's sake, before he even started coaching the San Jose Earthquakes, he was already linked with a job to potentially coach Cruz Azul, and that rumor quickly went out. So I don't expect this would be any different, and that I would expect this rumor to quickly fizzle out, and I expect Matias Almeida should be with the San Jose Earthquakes next season for this club. But Diego Valeri says that he will talk about his contract situation after the season. So last week I talked about how Portland is having a little bit of a problem in terms of dealing with Valeri's contract, and that they want to make him a TAM player and open up a DP spot for some of the signings that they want to make in the offseason. And Valeri straight down says no, because he's still contributing with the team, and that the numbers he's putting up is definitely DP level kind of number. So he thinks that the club should continue to pay around the same amount that they are paying him right now. Now, as I also said last week, there are a couple of Timbers representative that is going down to Argentina in terms of trying to resolve this issue. But obviously, Valeri, he's definitely trying to downplay it and say that he's not going to be talking about this situation until after the season. And one other thing that I also have noticed with Valeri is that he has started to not appear in some of the Portland Timbers game. And that you would think with the Timbers in the mix of this playoff race and are one of those 4 teams that's going to be heading into decision day, kind of like in a do-or-die scenario, you would think that they would start Valeri more often. But that has not been the case in the last couple of games, and it's not because of resting him or that he's injured or whatsoever. He's just kind of left on the bench for the last couple of games, and you wonder, does that have anything to do with the contract situation that is going on with him? So, yeah, certainly for the Timbers, they hope that they can, of course, get this deal done. Obviously, if they do lose Valeri for during this offseason, which, with the way that things have kind of stirred up, I won't be surprised if that's the case. But if they do lose him this offseason, that is a huge blow to the Timbers, and that I do have some concern in the future in terms of the Portland Timbers, and that I'll kind of talk a little bit more about it when I do the moving forward series of the Portland Timbers once they get eliminated, either from the playoffs in the regular season or when they get knocked out in the playoffs. RSL has part ways with GM Craig Weibo, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people have talked about, and that this has kind of been flying under the radar in terms of the news that has happened. But what happened in this situation of why RSL decided to part way with their GM Craig Weibo is because he was involved with the whole Mike Pecky saga. So remember how Mike Pecky was fired by RSL because of that allegation of him making racist remark toward the referee in that League Cup game, and that Pecky basically decided to file a lawsuit against RSL in terms of that. Well, Weibo was involved in that lawsuit, and that I think from what I also heard, he also kind of criticized the owner of RSL, and that he also said that he was eventually going to leave at the end of the season. Well, it turns out that, he is going to leave at the end of the season, but certainly not really after the season has gone on. And what's even more surprised about this is that despite all the turbulence that has gone on in terms of the front office and the whole situation with Mike Pecky and also the GM, RSL have not really kind of talked about it, and you haven't really found a lot of media kind of attention about this situation, which I guess maybe the reason why they decided to do this is because they don't want to spark a controversy right at the heart of the playoff race, and that despite all this turbulent situation that is going through the front office, at least the good thing about RSL is they're still being very stable, and that they haven't really kind of faltered whatsoever, because time and time again, we've seen teams when they go into a turbulent situation, whether it's a manager that has disagreement with the players or the fact that there's some trouble in the front office and that the GM, of course, is criticizing the owner in this situation, you would think the team is going through a crisis. But if you didn't know about this whole situation, you wouldn't think RSL was kind of dealing with a crisis with the way that they continue to perform very well, and that they, of course, have clinched their spot in terms of heading to the postseason. But it's going to be interesting to see that. I think after this season, we might find a little bit more detail why that is the case. And I haven't heard a lot of news about the verdict in terms of Mike Pecky lawsuit that he is suing RSL in terms of some of the wages that they did not pay him after they fired him a couple of weeks ago. The Galaxy are looking to try to get Rangers striker Alfredo Morales, and when I read this news, I'm kind of left scratching my head a little bit of why in the world did the Galaxy need to decide to look for another striker. I mean, the main problem for the Galaxy is not the attack. The attack is no doubt one of the best in the league. I mean, when you have Zlatan, Pavone, and also Alessandrini and all those guys in the front of the attack, you know you're going to be a team that's going to score a lot of goals, which that's what the Galaxy has been doing. The problem is they have gave up a lot of goals. And the fact that this team continuously ignored this defensive issue that they have makes me wonder why exactly they tried to do that. Like, I know this offseason they were trying to fix this defensive issue by signing some defensive replacement, but it just doesn't seem like it has helped whatsoever. And that, I mean, it's almost like the front office kind of accept the fact that, we know our defense is going to be awful, so let's buy a couple more strikers in terms of trying to score more goals so that we can, of course, outlast opponent. And if your recipe is trying to score more goals than your opponent and trying to play like a 4-3 or a 5-4 kind of game, that is a very dangerous kind of game to play. And that, the other thing that I also want to say this is that I don't know how are they going to afford to try to get Alfredo Morales, because this is another guy that has been doing very well with Rangers. I heard he has scored like 64 goals in like 112 appearances, and that there's also a couple of clubs in Europe that is looking to try to get him too. And that you also got to remember the Galaxy doesn't have any DP spot left, and they're actually thinking about getting rid of one of their DP, because if they want to keep Pavone for next season as a designated player, they need to get rid of one their DP player. And knowing that I talk about some of the stat line of Alfredo Morales and how he is considered one of the best attacker in the Scottish League, there's no doubt that this probably should be a DP signing, and that the Galaxy just don't have any DP spot left. Like, unless if this is a replacement for Zlatan, then it's understandable. I mean, he is definitely a very good striker that can be a proven goal scorer. But if they're not going to get rid of Zlatan heading into next season, I don't think this move will actually happen. And that if this move does happen, I don't know where you're going to put him. Like, you just don't have any more DP spot left. And, I'm not going to get into that slippery slope in terms of talk about issue with DP and how some people are saying that it's time for MLS to eventually abolish this designated player rule and also the salary cap, and that teams should spend as much as they do, and that of course will be another discussion for another day in terms of whether or not if that is a good idea. Joseph Martinez is report to be returning to training and could play on decision day. Now, when I heard this news, I was actually shocked, because it's been 10 days since that match between the Quakes and Atlanta, and then it's been 10 days since Joseph Martinez was carted off on what looked like it was a serious injury that he suffered, and yet 10 days later he's back in training. And that I heard they said that it wasn't a very serious injury, and that he was only going to be keeping out for the game for a couple of weeks. But I definitely did not expect 10 days as the time for him to return back to training after he suffered looked like a very serious injury. And that, if you're Atlanta, do you decide to risk him to try to play him on decision day? Because we know Atlanta ain't going to get the top spot in the Eastern Conference, and although they still have a chance to get that second spot, and that second spot is definitely very important. Consider you can potentially host at least two conference or two playoff game in the playoffs, or two home playoff game in the playoffs. Is it really worth it if you try to rush Joseph Martinez back? That I'm pretty sure he's not 100% healthy. Like, there is no way in the world he should be 100% healthy after he suffered that serious injury just 10 days ago. And even if he is returning to training right now, I don't know. I think this is just too big of a risk for Atlanta to do. And that, I think for the sake of their playoff chance, or not their playoff chances, but in terms of their playoff run, I think they should just not start him on decision day. Rest him for decision day and see if he can go when the playoffs begin. And again, I'm absolutely shocked the fact that it only took 10 days for him to fully recover. Like, Atlanta, I don't know what their medical staff did to him and what kind of miracle medicine that they gave to Joseph Martinez that can heal his leg in that short time. But if that is the case, I'm pretty sure a lot of teams want to find out, because when you look at that injury that he suffered, it looked like he was going to be done for the season, not just a simple 10-day injury. Now, another guy that is going to be potentially be out for decision day is Alejandro Bedoya, who of course suffered that quad injury in the last game against Columbus. But the good news for the Union is that quad injury is not very serious, and that he's going to be probably out for 1 to 2 weeks, and that he's going to be most likely out for decision day, but will be back once the playoffs started. So that's great news for the Union, who really need their captain once they start their playoff run, and that, we shall see if that, of course, is the case. And finally, MLS Disco has fined Portland in terms of the mass confrontation that Portland and SKC had. And oh, by the way, speaking of Portland, I actually skipped one of the news here. The Timbers are report that they are no longer appealing for Brian Fernandez' red card, and I think that was pretty much confirmed when it also mentioned that Brian Fernandez has been fined by Disco for failure to leave the pitch on in a timely manner, and that goes same with Ilie. And Tajori Shradi, Rubio, and Lewis all was fined for embellishment in this week. But going back to the Brian Fernandez situation, yeah, there was no doubt that I didn't think he was going to, I don't think the Timbers was going to win this appeal, mainly because, anytime when you decide to put your hands in an opponent's face, that is a violation of hand to the face policy. And whether you try to hold back an opponent, or you just do it unintentionally, at the end of the day, as soon as you put your hand on the face or the neck of an opponent, that is a violation of the policy. Now, in the future, maybe they might think about adjusting that rules so that, if it's an unintentional act, then MLS will not or the referee won't fine you or won't send you off because of a violation of that rule. But because of that, that's why, of course, he is going to be unavailable for the next game against the Quakes on decision day. And I mean, I don't know if it actually does affect the Timbers a lot. I mean, I know it's definitely a big loss for the Timbers in terms of they lost one of their goals scored up front, but it's not like Brian Fernandez for the last couple of games have been setting the world on fire. I mean, I remember when he came into the league, he was definitely doing that and scoring goals pretty much every single game. But for the last couple of games, and ever since when this Timbers team gone on to that drought where they didn't score a goal in 3 games, he also was part of those 3 game stretch where they didn't score a goal. And yeah, I mean, it seemed like he is just basically stopped producing, and that in many ways it's been Abobasi, the one that's been producing the goal and kind of become the main goal scorer for the Timbers in these last couple of games. So, in my opinion, I know they of course are going to lose their main lethal goal scorer, but if he's not scoring a lot of goals and you have a guy that has been scoring goals for you, I don't know if that's actually going to be as big of a loss as many people would anticipate to be. But at the same time, he is still a dangerous kind of goal scorer, and that at least the good news for the Quakes is that we don't have to worry about him because he will be suspended for that game because of the red card against SKC. But now, moving on into the U.S. men's national team October call-up as I finish talk about the news of the week. And these are the 26 players that is going to be called up for the U.S. men's national team. In goal, we got Brad Guzan, Sean Johnson, and Zach Steffen. In defense, we got Reggie Cannon, Nick Lima, Aaron Long, Daniel Lovitz, Matt Miazga, Tim Reens, DeAndre Yetland, Walker Zimmerman, Brendan Aronson, who's making his debut, called up for the U.S. men's national team, alongside with Michael Bradley, Sebastian Lletget, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Christian Rodon, Will Trapp, and Jackson Yo. All of them are going to be playing in the midfield. Then going up top, we got Josie Altidore, Paul Ariola, Corey Bear, Tyler Boyd, Jordan Morris, George Sargent, and Jarzy Zardes as the main attacker for this team. And when you look at this 26-man roster, yeah, it looked very similar to the September call-up, and that you could maybe say that it's almost a carbon copy of the September call-up that Greg Berhalter has put. I think maybe the only guy that I recognize that he wasn't part of the call-up, and he wasn't part of the call-up even in the Gold Cup too, is DeAndre Yetland, who was suffering that injury and that he just got back from that injury, and that it's good that at least we have some option in terms of the fullback option. In terms of some of the snubs that I can see in this 26-man roster call-up, obviously the biggest snub that I heard a lot of people talk about is Serginho Dest. I think that's the player that they've been saying that he has been snubbed, and that he was part of the U.S. men's national team for the last couple of call-ups, and I heard it has something to do with the nationality that he has, and that he's having a little bit trouble with that, so that's why he wasn't part of the call-up. Obviously, there was a lot of people that still pretty upset the fact that Michael Bradley, Will Trapp, and Jarzy Zardes is still in this team. I mean, I don't blame them. I don't know how in the world they still are belonging in the U.S. men's national team, considering none of those players you could say that they should be deserved in terms of starting or even being on this U.S. men's national team squad. And that the other thing that I also noticed is that you have a lot of MLS player in the U.S. men's national team call-up, and that this has been kind of the theme for Greg Berhalter, where he's been calling a lot of MLS player into the U.S. men's national team squad, and that I guess maybe the reason why he's been calling a lot of MLS team is because some of the European kind of some of the Americans that's playing with European team is currently injured or that they're unavailable. So guys like Tyler Adams and John Brooks, two notable names that play with European team that is currently injured. So that's why they're not in the squad for the last couple of call-up. But, I guess, the other reason why there's a lot of MLS call-ups in the last couple of call-ups is because Greg Berhalter, after all, he is kind of he used to be the coach of the Columbus Crew, and he definitely believes in MLS, and that we shall see, when you look at these next couple of games and just these next couple of call-ups until when we get into the World Cup qualifying for 2022, whether how many of these players is going to be still in this call-up, and that is it still going to be a majority MLS kind of players that is going to be part of the qualifier in 2022 in a couple of years. I mean, right now, I think the other reason why there's a lot of MLS call-up is that, we're still trying to find a balance in terms of the system, and that trying to figure out ways where we can make sure that when we do get to World Cup qualifying time, that unlike last time, we will make sure we will qualify for the World Cup in 2022. So, yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for this video. Let me know in the comments below in terms of these news and what kind of news that I also forgot to talk about, and also the U.S. men's national team October call-up. Is there a couple of guys that you think should deserve to be in this call-up, and that do you think that there are a couple of guys that probably should not be belonging in the U.S. men's national team October call-up? Let me know in the comments below. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.